we're sitting down for an interreview on Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. This has been created by Insomniac Games, the studio that has brought us such classics as Spyro, which they made 3 of those back in the late 90s. Resistance Games, they made 3 of those for the PlayStation 3.
Good games.
And 11 Ratchet and Clank games.
Great games.
From 2002 to the present time. And now they bring us Spider-Man. This game has been extremely well received as far as selling 3.3 million copies in its first 3 days of release. So this game is doing very well. As far as critically, it is doing well critically and by the players. Players are just loving this game. But I wouldn't know. I have not played this game. Now, Dave has spent the last week playing through this game. I don't know how far he's gotten. I don't know what he thinks about it. We have not talked about this. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And we're going to find out if it's worth playing, how it works, how it flows. And
It's
just
bread and butter.
go from there.
All right.
If you want to, start us off with a little summary of the game. I guess like what it is and just how it's kind of put together.
Yeah, I mean, it's an open world action game. It's it features everyone's favorite friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Spider-Man, you've been living under a rock forever. This game feels very familiar to the Spider-Man 2 game, which everyone loved. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, it's the swinging thing. Yay, I loved playing Spider-Man 2 because you got to swing around and the swinging mechanics were great. And at least if I play this, that'll happen. So yeah, you take the place of Peter Parker and you're going throughout the city and you're solving crimes and you're adventuring and there's a rich story and all kinds of good stuff like that. So that's pretty much the core of it, of what you do.
Okay.
They kind of mapped out almost all of New York City, and it's really impressive that they did that. So that is
impressive.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start off with the story before we get into the gameplay or just like how the game is at its core. The story, you said, has a very rich and in-depth story.
Yeah.
But
it's
kind of like is he in high school? Is he out of high school? Like where is he? What characters are in this?
He is. Because
I don't know.
Right. If you're familiar with Peter Parker, and I mean I've seen all the movies, so. I mean, Spider-Man Homecoming, he was still in high school. In the original Tobey Maguire ones, he was kind of like in college, kind of like out of college a little bit. With the Andrew Garfield terrible ones, he was, I think, pretty much in college at the end of high school. And this one, it takes place. It's not connected to any of the movies, which is great. It's its own story. It's not even really connected to the comic books per se. I mean, you have all the same characters, but they take some liberties with the stories and the characters, but good liberties. It's not like they go, oh, you butchered that character. Like, no. They do it justice to every single one, and they keep to what the core of all the lore is, I suppose. So it takes place. It's after college. Peter has a job. He's your normal guy. He's trying to be a scientist and trying to help out the community, not as necessarily a Spider-Man, but as using his own talents to help mankind. And I don't want to spoil anything. This will be spoiler free. So you've kind of caught him in between relationship with Mary Jane. He's helping out some characters, and it's kind of a villain has been put away, and it's not spoiling anything saying it's the Kingpin. I think everyone knows that you fight the Kingpin in pretty much the beginning of the game, and then he goes away, and it's like, well, who takes the Kingpin's place? And kind of
where the game
kind of goes, like what happens, and then there's new villains that come into play, old villains, and kind of everything that evolves into that. And there's some political drama, there's kind of like relationship stuff, and I found myself interested in the Peter Parker story just as I was interested in the Spider-Man stuff. I thought that stuff would be like, ugh, I don't care about Peter. Give me Spidey. I want to do that. But I actually was involved in it. The voice acting is really good. All the cutscenes are really well done. I was actually impressed. I mean, I've played the Uncharted games, and I played, which I think are the best in that kind of storytelling.
Yes,
Just like The
from that
Last of Us.
aspect.
Right. And they tried to copy that, and they did a really good job at it. That's exactly what we wanted to see. I still think Uncharted does it better, or Last of Us does it really well. But they did a fantastic job. I can't really say enough more on the story because I think it'll ruin it. But if you're a Spider-Man fan who likes the lore, who likes the whole world, you will not hate this game or even think it's just okay. You'll love it. You'll soak up every single ounce of it because you got to see all those familiar characters and you want to know more about what happens with these people. And you like where they take in, certain characters that you really know, and you're like, oh wait, that guy's in this position, or he does that now. Like, that's different from the comics, but I'm digging it. No one really has an issue with the way they took certain people in the positions they put them in. You just kind of accept it and go, okay, well, that's what's happening in this version of Spider-Man, and it's totally cool.
So I know Insomniac, even though this is Marvel's Spider-Man,
right?
This is their own universe. They were able to create it, so it's not linked to any movies. No
movies, no comics, no TV shows.
I know.
Nothing.
I read that it pulls from several comic lines.
Yes,
I think mostly from the Ultimate comic book.
Yeah, I can kind of see that a little bit from what I've read, but
that's what I've heard. Let's just jump into gameplay.
Okay.
I mean, we have a couple, other questions that revolve around the world itself, New York City and how the environment works and the details behind that. But I just kind of want to jump into the gameplay. More of, I know you get different suits, but how does the battle system itself work? I mean,
there's two parts of the gameplay. One is the traversal, which is swinging. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. This game is... Everyone remembers Spider-Man 2 for the swinging. It was the first time they really incorporated that into a game where it felt the physics were right and it felt like you were actually Spider-Man swinging through buildings. And they took that and they made it better, which I didn't think was... I mean, I knew it was possible, but I thought it would be off by the wayside. And they didn't. They crushed it. Not only is it better, but it just flows so beautifully. And when I first played this game, I couldn't wait to get to the part. And they throw you into it pretty quick of the swinging and how to move about the city. And I spent probably an hour and a half to 2 hours completely ignoring my missions and just swinging around the city. Like, I climbed the tallest building and jumped off of it and just going around the entire New York. I wasted so much time. I won't say wasting because it was great. I loved just swinging. And it's not just the swinging. It's the way... you get, you running up buildings, the way when you get to the top, you can like web down and like stop yourself. It's all those movements are fantastic. There was a couple bugs, which I didn't like about how he crawls up some things, but you don't really care at that point. You're like, climb up that, Peter. Forget it. Whatever. Let's go back to swinging.
It wasn't like in the Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 2. I think you could just be at the top of the sky and you could be webbing to nothing.
Oh, Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man 2 was okay. It was 1. You could be above all the sides and you're still like swinging back and forth.
It's been a long time
since
that was that game. But
and Spider-Man 2, you couldn't like. And the same thing with this one. I was and sometimes it catches you by surprise because you'll be in the skyscraper area and then you'll come down to where buildings are only like maybe 5 to 10 stories tall.
Yeah.
And you're going, wait, I can't web. Why? You're hitting the button to swing and you're like, why won't it swing? And I thought my controller was broken at a point. Like, why isn't R2 working? And I'm like, well, what the heck am I going to swing to? There's nothing above me. And at first I was angry and then I was happy going, no. I like this. This is the way it should be.
Yes.
I got to use a different tactic.
Details.
I got to zip line down or just fall down and do something. So I loved that. It can be frustrating, but that's kind of the point of the game. That's the gameplay. Now, as far as the battle system goes, and a lot of people say, oh, this is ripped off Arkham. No, it didn't. They had the same battle system in Spider-Man 2. All right. And they made it. This is the best like superhero battle system I've ever dealt with. Not just because it flows really well, but it flows extremely well. And I can't say enough about it. It's like, I loved God of War, and the problem I had with it is when you killed a boss, it was like, okay, the same animation. Oh, I killed the boss. Okay, I know what's going to happen here. He's going to throw his axe in the guy's mouth and throw him down. Okay, I've seen it a million times. With this one, there must be like 30 different moves to knock people out. And they just keep changing, or whatever kind of, like if you're up against a wall, if you're up on a skyscraper, like where are you? And it just, the way you move from enemy to enemy just looks good and it looks fantastic. And you get more caught up watching the screen going, wow, that was cool, than you are actually playing. Like I died several times going, oh, that was cool. And oh crap, I
so
forgot
do you
to dodge that
control
bullet.
like your webbing as far as
I mean,
different types of webs? Because if you're in a different suit,
well, the different
does that
suits,
control different?
Yeah, the suit's
abilities?
Almost like it has like a special ability. So you'll choose like it has the original suit, which may like web a bunch of people, and like the new suit with the white on it, which really looks cool. By the way, they did a good job with that. I thought I'd hate it, but no, I'm digging it. That has a different ability. I think like increases your focus or something along those lines. So each one, not everyone has something different. Some of them are just for aesthetics, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And it doesn't do anything, but you're just doing that because you think it looks cool. But most of them have an actual gameplay mechanic into that, where you like, okay, for this battle, I want to use the suit because it does this, or I'm going to switch to this guy because there's a big group of enemies, or this is a big tough guy, or whatever have you. So
there's a wide variety of options depending on the situation that you're going into.
And some people complain. I read some reviews where they're like, oh, well, you only tend to use the one. I disagree. I used quite a bit of them to see which I liked and which battle it worked best with. You could probably use one suit and be okay, but I kind of found it easier to switch up. Now, as far as the different webs, there's a lot of different webs to choose from. I don't think I want to say them all because some are kind of like hidden within the game. But there's like little mines you can throw, bombs, and like big webs, little webs, things like that. And it's like Insomniac's known for their, like if you play the Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet has a whole bunch of different guns. They all do something different. Same thing with Resistance. Like that first Resistance game was, hey, these are all a whole bunch of guns you can have. They each do something different. And that was the draw of that. And Insomniac has not stopped with that. You do feel not limited, but you feel, okay, I have enough webs here and a much different variety where I can do that. But I don't want to say the webs, it's more fun beating them up than webbing them. Webbing them is more as a strategy to actually like, oh, there's a big group here, or this one guy's kind of tough, so I'm going to do this kind of web. I'm not saying they're not used, they are, but I found just beating them down to be a little more effective. That's just kind of my style. Maybe other people are going to choose through webs, but you don't feel like, man, I wish I had a web that did this, or you feel pretty satisfied with what you have, and you can upgrade the stuff, which is, of course, what you need in the game. You can go through and say, oh, I want this one to have more. I want this to reload faster. I want this to have a bigger, wider range, and you're never really disappointed in what something does. So in that aspect, the combat is really, really well. Yeah, there's a few quirks here and there, but nothing to complain about. Nothing to say, oh, that ruins the game. No, it's perfectly great in everything it does.
Okay. Let's talk about the world itself and what else is in the game besides just a main story. So, like, the environment is detailed.
Okay, let me just say this:
when you're done a mission and you want to do a side quest, is it like fetch side quest? Are you getting pizza for people?
There's no pizza as far as I know.
Are you helping the police? So like what?
Yeah,
I mean, what else are you doing besides?
You're collecting little icons and little trinkets. You're not catching anyone's balloons. And one you have to catch doves for this guy, like little side quests, and one you have to for Black Cat, it's not a spoiler, Black Cat's, and I think most people know that. You have to like go and look through cameras that were sites that she had been, like little heist areas. So that it's just little different kind of side quests that kind of stop the monotony. Because if it was all, find, there's backpacks littered around that you have to find, which actually was, to me, being a Spider-Man nerd, I got the most excitement out of. I'm like, oh, that's from this episode. Oh, that one's from that comic. Oh, that's cool. So
was Bruce Campbell in it?
Not that I know of. He may have been. I don't know. There's so many Easter eggs in this game that I was even reading some today. I'm like, I did not know that. I have to go. I wanted to tonight go. I have to go find that. I have to go find that immediately.
Yeah, I read that this game is chocked full.
If
crazy
you're a Marvel,
amounts of detail that's within the game.
Yeah, even if you're not a huge Marvel fan, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I watched the movies and I've read a few comics and whatnot, but. I picked up on pretty much everything, and there'll be people who really study this stuff in depth. And we've talked about this. I think everything should be layered, and people who are just looking at it for fun, people who are a little more in depth where I am, kind of that middle, and then the extreme nerds about it. Nothing wrong with being a nerd, but the people who really just, hey, I have every comic, I've seen every TV show, every movie. I love Spider-Man in and out. And if for whatever that person you are, there's something for you. And I thought it was great. I mean, the Avengers Tower is in it, but in other moments, and it's not really a spoiler, but one of the backpack items, he goes, oh, it's a card from that lawyer who said if Spider-Man needs a lawyer, and it's Daredevil, cool. And it's his own thing. I'm like, Yeah, that's cool, man. I like to see that kind of stuff
That's
where
pretty cool.
it really puts you into that.
I was going to say, it kind of seems like it builds the world on itself without having to necessarily explore.
Yeah,
and that's an
exactly.
Easter egg. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a perfectly well
I've
placed.
never seen so many Easter eggs. I mean, Batman had a lot of them, and Arkham Knight and
Yes.
whatnot. It had a lot, but this one is, pretty sure, has way more and just a broader range. And you do feel like you do feel saying, hey, this could be attached to the current Marvel universe. You do feel that could be a real thing. It's like they're totally aware that world exists and that people like that stuff and they want to see more. They're aware of the Netflix shows. They're aware of all this stuff and they put that in there, even if it makes sense or not, which it all does make sense. But you almost can say, forget that. Forget how the Avengers play into this Spider-Man universe. You know that they're real. There's their tower. You know that Tony Stark is a thing. I mean, not to spoil the suits, you do get like the Iron Spider suit. You do get the Stark suit from Spider-Man: Homecoming. You get the original one from the original Spider-Man suit. So
I think there's maybe 30 suits.
yeah, something like that. I think I've got almost every one. There's a couple I haven't unlocked yet. Yeah,
apparently.
Yeah, there's a couple. So I love that. You do not get the Venom suit, the symbiote suit, but I know they're going to do that in the next one. I think they even confirmed that. It's and what I like about it is they didn't need to put that stuff in because it technically doesn't make sense. Like, why would he have the Stark suit? Like, that's not the same Peter. But who cares? You enjoy it, and it just fits with the game perfectly. No one's going, oh, well, that wouldn't make sense because where's Tony Stark and how come he has the iron thing there? And that doesn't make sense. Who cares? Like, the fact is that I can throw on the suit and it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody would have a
problem. I don't think anyone, no one's going to have a problem with it.
People do want to see that.
Yes, exactly. So when I see that stuff, I'm like, you guys, this has become a form of art now at this point, and it's no longer just, I'm trying to make a buck. And clearly they're making money off this, which is great, but you can tell there was passion put into this. There was care. There was love put into this project, and it really shows an incredible amount.
Okay. Why don't you give me 3 of your favorite things and 3 of your least favorite, basically a pro and cons list.
Okay, I'm gonna have to put swinging up at the top just because I can spend hours. I can go home right now and just swing for an hour and be totally satisfied. Okay. And I'd say it's mindless because you do have to somewhat pay attention, but it's very relaxing, which is good. I mean, games should be entertaining and at some point relaxing, and it is.
So that's one.
That's one. I have to say, I talked about the battle system earlier, but yeah, I mean, it's fun to fight enemies. When you're like, oh, I'm swinging through and there's a crime happening over there. You're never going, oh, I don't want to bother with it. You do want to. You want to go down and fight enemies. Fighting enemies doesn't really get boring. Sometimes it does. If you're like, okay, this is my 4th battle, I want to get to more of the story. I get that. But it doesn't really wear on you as much as you would think it would. They do a good job of mixing things up.
Okay.
As far as the third one, I'm not going to say the Easter eggs because eventually they run out and you're like, okay, there's no more Easter eggs to have. That's great.
Yeah, but that can be
a positive. I like it and I appreciate it. But as far as playing through the game, like I can't say that's like, oh, what is my favorite things? No, I loved it.
Like the story, was there characters? Was there something that really just?
I'd have to say this may sound weird, but I have to say the environment is one of my favorite things. It's so ridiculously detailed that it's kind of gross. Like, I almost feel like they overdid it, which they shouldn't have. I'm glad with the level they took to it. But to see every little detail in the buildings, to see like, oh, I can look through windows and see stuff inside people's apartments. I can see this building from this show and this one. And I found out today that the Ghostbusters warehouse is in there, or their fire station, whatever it was. I'm like, and that's just cool to me. Like, I did not know that. I have to go home and actually find it now. Yeah. So it's stuff like that I don't ever get sick of the environment. And there's always a new location, even though you can traverse it pretty easily, get to one end of the map to the other. You never feel like, oh, I've been here before. Like, yeah, of course you have, but it always feels fresh and new. And it's you do feel like New York is an actual living place with people. It never feels like, oh, this is just the stupid environment. Like it feels more real than like Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
And that's saying a lot.
Cons. Something that's negative, something that they could have worked on to improve on.
Okay, I have them pretty easily. One, about the traversing, his climbing sometimes is a little clunky. Like, you'll climb up walls, if like the walls on a curve or on a ceiling, and he kind of like does this weird thing, like he's running, but he's crawling and he's falling, and you're like, okay, I just want to just slowly climb up the wall, not run up it, be a little more stealthy with it. That's a little clunky on those controls. I didn't like them. In some places where I'm like, well, I can crawl under that. Like, no, you can't. Why not? Well, because there's something above you. Like, well, who cares if there's something above me? I should, like, they have these fire escapes. Like, New York has fire escapes, right? What I learned, you can like zip up them real quick. It's this really cool animation how you get up them super fast. But I tried to crawl underneath one. Oh, you can't do that. I'm like, I get why from a programming point, but I should be able to climb underneath these and just crawl on the wall. So I kind of found that irritating, especially when I was fighting enemies.
So a couple weird little buggy...
A couple weird little buggies things, how they did that. It was kind of frustrating here and there, but it didn't take out the experience. That was like, for me. There are certain segments of the game where you have to play as Mary Jane and Miles Morales.
This is your second point.
This is my second one. I didn't hate those scenes because I understand why they're there. It's changing the pacing up a little, trying something new. But to me, they're just like, you could have kind of condensed those a little bit, and they kind of come off as like, if I'm saying I'm replaying the game, I'd want to skip those scenes. Like, okay, I've seen this. I know how to Mary Jane unlocks the thing. I get it. So it's boring. Just let me do it. I think
more of a dull moment, like where the game's just chugging along.
I understand why they did it from a story point, but if I'm going to replay the game, I want to completely eliminate those parts. They should have an option where I can skip those. Like, I don't want to play as Miles right now unless Miles is Spider-Man. I don't want to play as Mary Jane unless Mary Jane's climbing up walls. It's just, that's not, I didn't buy the game to be, it's not, Mary Jane for the PlayStation 4. It's Spider-Man. Let me play as Spider-Man. I understand doing it the first time, but not, if I want to replay the game, I want to skip those scenes immediately. They would just be like, get through this as fast as you can. And that became a little frustrating.
Okay, that's two.
The third one... I have to think, because I had one, but then I thought, that's really not the worst thing about it at all. I don't know if I have a third one. I guess I could say, I don't say variety of side quests, because they're fine. They're okay. I want to say some kind of customization in your suit. I think would have been a little cool. I'm not saying it needed that, but I thought that could have been a little fun to kind of put that into the game.
So overall, there's not really
there's not really
too much negative.
No. I mean, it's it moves well. I'm not going to go. Oh, some people complain about loading times. Whatever. You have to have loading times in a game. Sorry, that's just the way it works. I can't help that.
Not in God of War.
What? Well, okay, yeah, that's true. God of War doesn't, but I understand it's a big city from a technical standpoint. I understand that you have to have that. Okay, I tell you what, my third one is the music's great, but sometimes when you're not flying, but swinging through, the music kind of gets like, okay, I've heard the same one. You could have a little more options as far as how the music plays. So that one I'm kind of like, all right. I would also have liked, and I know why they didn't do it, but it's just a quirk. Like a day-night cycle, or like, hey, weather's coming in. Those things are like preset. Like, okay, now you're flying through daytime. Okay, Peter went to sleep. Now it's nighttime.
Okay.
Like, there's no, like, you could swing.
It's not an active.
No, I could swing for 8 hours, and the sun's going to be up for. I could play the game for 24 hours straight, and the sun will always be up for 24 hours. That kind of was like, all right, you could have made. It would have been really cool to see the sunset over New York, to see the sunrise. That I understand why they didn't do it, but I think you probably could have put that into the game a little bit better. I guess that was my only quirk as far as making it feel a little more alive.
Okay.
And on a side, I would like to. I know you can go in some buildings, but I kind of think I wanted to go in a few more. I think they could have done that. You can use procedural generation to do that, and I know they did that for a lot of like looking inside the buildings and stuff. I think you could have done that to give us a little more like, hey, I want to actually walk into this building. I want to. I would have liked to see that. It's not like a quirk. It's just kind of like what I want to see.
He is Spider-Man. He doesn't.
Yeah,
really
you don't need to do that. I get
indoors,
that. I get that. So that's my only. I didn't feel like there was a home base, but that's just I don't know. That's really nitpicking on that point. The first two are, I think, pretty legitimate.
My last point before I ask for your score is your replay value, the replayability.
As far as running through the story again. Pretty mild, and I say that because I learned everything there was to learn. I've done all the little stuff, and there's a lot of little like puzzles and side things as you're like playing, which I liked. Because I like little puzzles that happen. I know some people didn't like them, whiners. But if I replay the game, like I said with the whole Miles and Mary Jane thing, I want to skip that stuff. I don't want to have to do it, and you can skip them at first, but then it's like, oh well, this doesn't get me enough experience. The game is not. I think they know that. And I think it's sort of like you're going to beat it and you're going to keep playing it. You want to get to 100% and you want to swing around forever. Yes. So would I replay it? I will keep playing it after the beat game. I'm going to keep playing that. I'm going to keep swinging around, keep solving crimes, whatever.
As far as starting a new game,
but
not
starting a new
necessarily.
game, if they do a new game plus, I'll definitely be interested in that. But I'm not going to I played it on medium difficulty because I want to get through it. I'm not going to go back and play it on hard. I'm just not going to do that. Unless they come out with like a new game plus, I might try that. But there's no point for me to do that. It would have been better if it's like, hey, if you get these things perfectly, you get this awesome suit that you could only done if you did the game perfectly. Okay, I would go have seen that. But there's nothing like that in that option. It's meant to be played, hey, I beat it, and now I'm going to,
do some side quests, collect
everything there is to collect.
Get the platinum trophy.
Right. You're not meant to just keep replaying it. I understand that. So as far as replaying it from the beginning, no. But even though I've beaten it, I want to keep playing it. Like I want to go home and keep playing it, even though as far as that is replay value, I think it's pretty high. It's kind of difficult to explain in this kind of game because it's like Grand Theft Auto. You'll beat that game, but you'll keep playing for forever just because it's fun to do. But I think Grand Theft Auto is more fun to replay through, like to start the story over and to see Trevor and the rest of them and all the funny lines, than this is.
Okay. All right. So, out of 10, 10 being pretty much
perfect game,
masterpiece, 1 being the biggest pile, just terrible.
Yeah, Monkey Rusher. This is difficult because I hate giving out high scores because I believe there are some real masterpieces that have come out recently. But because of the love that was put into this and as fun as this play, it's a solid 9. Like this game is a 9. Period. I have to go higher if I feel like there was really a lot more to play. I know there's a lot of DLC planned. That's great. I know there's going to be a sequel. They set one up perfectly in the game. And I definitely will buy a sequel. There's, without a doubt, I will be downloading that at midnight to want to jump back into a new Spider-Man game. They did a fantastic job on this game. I mean, I don't know how anyone could play this and go, well, that was terrible. Well, then you don't have a pulse because you're out of your mind. This is the best superhero video game that's ever been made.
Okay.
I know that's the tall order to say that because the Arkham City and Arkham Asylum are really, really good. This is better than that. They took everything from those and they just made it better. So this is the best superhero game that's ever been made.
All right.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Based off of all of that.
Yeah.
I do want to play it. I really didn't have a lot of interest before it came out, but and I don't know why. It looked good. The previews, it looked good. It looked interesting, but I don't know why. But after seeing TV commercials and reading about the reception of the game and just hearing how well polished the game seems to be, it definitely is something I would like to sit down and look, because I enjoy Spider-Man myself.
The people did complain about the glitches. I experienced very, very minor. There was a couple people that just floated up a wall, and that I only experienced really 2. I think I got 1 crash. I'm not sure what I did, but I did have a crash. But I can't hold that against the game. If it was like No Man's Sky or something that crashed every 5 seconds, that would be a real issue with me. But these were very minor glitches, and I'm okay with that. Like I'll allow. It really didn't detract from the experience in any way. So yeah, I have to give this a solid 9.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be checking it out.
Please, and that way we can talk about the story. And just to hit real quick, I think when I went into this, I did not expect the story to be as good as it was. I expected it to be just like, okay, well, Peter has to stop this bad guy. Bad guy's going to do this. It's much deeper than that. And they did some things with characters. I'm like, they did that? Like that? They're not allowed to do that. Oh crap, they did that. So, yeah, it really is in depth, and they're taking it someplace where I'm not concerned, but I'm interested. Like things that you like, well, that character wasn't that person, but I guess they're going to be that person now. So I'm okay with that. I want to see where it goes. And normally I wouldn't say that in a Marvel or whatever franchise, like, well, you're not allowed to touch this property. Mm-hmm. But this one, you feel like it's in good hands. You don't feel like they're going to butcher it. You feel all right. So yes, it's good, and it keeps with the kind of
Insomniac has been around for quite some time.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like they took it out of the
they've-
world of Spider-Man. It feels Spider-Man-ish. It has that they got that feel of what Spider-Man is perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm sure after this is sold many more million copies,
Many more.
it will go on to have a sequel. And
Oh, they've already. I think they've already planned it.
probably a third.
I think they're signed for 3. I read that yesterday of how they have their contract for 3 games, which would make total sense. And I look forward to that. And I usually hate DLCs, but I'll be buying the DLC. Who am I kidding? I hate doing it, but I want to learn more about the story and get more stuff. And I would really, really love a Venom suit, a symbiote suit, a black one. Please, can they put that in the game? I don't want to wait to a sequel or a third one to have to do that. That just angers me. But I can't. I understand the storytelling has to be a certain thing, so I can't complain about that.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'll give you a copy when I'm done with it. I'll give you mine.
oh, I'm gonna take it from you.
Yes,
that's for sure.
I realize that.
So
I'll put in as much time as possible.
cool. Well, I'll be checking it out soon. Otherwise, Dave.
Chris.